You won't be able to zoom in until after that.
Be a limit.
Are you starting with non-public?
Yeah.
Wait to leave?
No, not yet. I mean, well, we'll
Once the
open the
meeting
meeting and then
starts,
go into
you will, yes.
non-public, so you can stay for a few minutes.
Hopefully.
Yeah, and does the agenda make it clear when we're starting with the non-public? I mean, I don't
Well,
know what,
it's-
I don't
It says
know,
call to order non-public,
Yeah.
so yeah.
I don't know a better way
The
to do
agenda's
that.
to order, that's right.
I did.
And we will have to make an announcement about the change
It's on a pile in 100 days.
Is it next, is it?
of date,
Do you know how many people are
Huh?
doing these items?
about being Tuesdays.
Yeah, you can do that, you're right on the show, right?
Okay.
No pressure.
Take it on.
Yeah, I guess I can do that.
Do we have to adjust the clock?
No, it's 4:58.
Okay.
Yeah, starting next week I might take a day off.
Most of the meetings on the time frame.
That,
It's easier.
yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's just that what keeps happening is it doesn't allow, like, now there's a grant deadline, now there's this, now there's that.
Emily, when did we agree to start the Tuesdays? Was it the 6th?
It was
Or
two,
the 7th or the 14th?
14,
14.
the next one.
I wasn't there the last time you came. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you so much. So,
Okay. It being 5 o'clock, I'll call the select board meeting to order, January 2nd, 2025. And I make a motion to go into non-public session under RSA 91, A:3, 2A,
okay, perfect, that's all I need.
session number 1.
Second.
All right, thanks so much.
Roll call vote. There, yes.
Schaefer, yes?
Prentice, yes.
We are now in non-public. 5:01.
It's 5:90.
All right, hold
make a
on one second,
motion
just
Oh,
let this
to-
start,
oh.
sorry.
I'm gonna start the Zoom.
Yep.
Happy little sound.
So we have a couple of our, you'll notice on the agenda, we have our petition warrant articles coming to review
Yeah.
their funding requests, and a couple are joining Zoom.
Okay.
Start video. You're so good at this. Okay, we should be good. Okay, there we go.
Okay. I make a motion to come out of non-public at 5:20.
Sorry?
Roll call vote.
You say yes?
Barry, yes.
Schaefer, yes?
Prentice, yes.
We're now out of non-public session at 5:20 PM. We have a few changes and additions to our agenda. We're going to talk about COLA and wage increases, land donation discussion, and abatement $19 from Act 214, Lot 154, Sub-Lot 13. Is there any public input that we should discuss before we get going on our meeting?
Were your minutes sealed?
Oh, minutes were not sealed from our non-public. Thank you.
The end time was 5:20, Emily.
Okay. We will start with a department head update with the police department.
Chief Littlefield.
Good evening, Happy New Year. December's been quite busy for us. Finished out December with 3 DUIs. One being a single car motor vehicle accident with serious injury. So, but person is doing well. But yeah. And the year is starting off busy already, but other than that, we're just plugging away. Nothing on the hiring front at this point. The applications we get are just not really worth our time, so we're not even giving them a look. Other than that, I did have something to bring before you. Back a couple months ago, I talked about some grant money. We got approved for a grant. We've already put into use the new radar sign, so you should see 2 out there, unless one's being charged. We also have a traffic counting device that we've put into use, and we're still kind of working out the bugs on that. But I had it up for 5 days here around Christmas, and it counted 10,900 cars going by the PD in that 5-day span. So, but the average speed was 30 miles an hour, 32 miles an hour.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. But data's funny because the more you pollute the data, the lower that average.
Yeah.
So it's just data's kind of funny. So, but
Is
it's
the data stored in a chip and you can retrieve it later, or can you download it in real time? Or?
I can actually watch in real time as long as I'm near the device, Bluetooth wise, so I can actually watch it in real time and then download the data as I need to or whatever. Still working out some things. It's got to be set at a certain angle and so on and so forth. But
Is the speed detector that's at the beginning of 113 ours, or is that the state's?
That's ours.
That's ours, so that's one of the new ones?
Yeah.
It's very clear and crisp.
Yeah,
Very
that's
readable.
probably the newest one.
Yeah.
So part of that, so those are the 2 devices plus speed enforcement grants, which I'll be doing at some point this year. And then another part of it was to add printers. The state wants us to be on board with e-ticketing. So we're no longer, they don't want us writing paper tickets for citations. They want us to do e-tickets. They've been asking for compliance in the state for, I don't know, at least 3 or 4 years now. They finally offered the equipment at 100%. The match part would be us to pay to install it, but they'll pay for the equipment. So that was sort of like tied into that original grant, and then they award, because it comes from different pools of money, I think, but they award the radar equipment from that, and we've already got that. Then they had to go back and write an amendment in order to get the printers for our cruisers. So what I have is just a grant agreement amendment notice. It's based off of grant number 25-181 from the Office of Highway Safety. And it just needs the board's approval to move forward so that we can make the purchase and then get reimbursed. The amount, it needs the signature. That says at least one signature of either the board chair or vice chair. Second signature doesn't hurt. They said not to worry about the JP unless you have one, and then initials on the second page. The amount that needs to be recorded in your minutes is $33.15. So you guys would just have to move to accept the Office of Highway Safety grant amendment to grant number 25-181 in the amount of $33.15.
That's 33.
3,315.
Thank you.
Yeah. Not
Like
$33.
33,000 or $33?
$33 would be great.
Yeah. Well, I move to accept the grant agreement amendment for grant 25-181 to the amount of $3,315.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Did you say yes?
There, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Prentice, yes.
And you wanna take this with you?
If you want, I'll just, and then I'll get a copy of the minutes from you.
Yep.
I did meet with the traffic study committee, last week. Talked about just their master plan for the Route 16 corridor, and went over some questions there, so it's good. Good opportunity to discuss our thoughts.
I think that's supposed to sign up here.
I'm assuming the recipient one. Are you clear on the signature line?
Yeah,
There you go.
There, yeah, all right,
and then initial in blue at the bottom of the second page.
thanks.
Thank you, and I'll get a copy to you.
Okay.
Other than that, I don't really have much else. Unless you have anything for me?
Any questions for Chief Littlefield?
Thanks
All
for
right.
coming.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Appreciate the
those
work.
grants.
Yeah.
Yeah. A pain in the butt.
Yeah, but you got them, so good job.
All right, have a good night.
Have a good
Great,
night.
too.
you too. All right, do we have anyone here from Tri-County?
Yeah, is Janae on,
It's like Brenda's
Zoom?
here.
Oh,
or Brenda?
Brenda.
Hi.
I just wanna check.
She couldn't make it tonight. She came down with this flu virus that's going on, and she's home with 101 fever, so I'm filling in for her tonight.
Okay, hi Brenda, thanks Ed.
Can you hear that? Yeah.
I just wanna check in first. Emery, is that you on the, who's on the iPhone so we can have it recorded for the minutes? We just see it says iPhone. Can you put a little chat memo in?
Yeah. Alright, well, we'll find that out, but
I just didn't know if it was Emily, so
yeah,
we
if it's
record
Emery,
that
I
he's
have to
part of the
record it
meeting.
when he joined.
Yeah.
Yes, it is me.
Oh,
It is you? Oh, okay. So Emery is officially part of the meeting.
Okay,
Thanks. Hi,
thank you.
Emery. Okay.
Okay, Brenda, you're up.
Let me introduce myself. My name is Brenda Gagne. I am the Chief Programs Officer for Tri-County CAP. Again, I'm here sitting in for Janae, who's out sick, unfortunately. We are requesting level funding for $6,327 from the town of Tamworth to provide services that we have in the Tamworth area for those residents. Last year, we provided services for 836 residents of the town of Tamworth, totaling over $373,000. Those services included fuel and electric, transit services, weatherization, of course our dental center, and guardianship services. Every year we do our best to stay at level funding when we request from the town. The funding we do get from the towns are extremely important in providing the match dollars we need for the federal funding that we receive to be able to provide all these services. Tri-County CAP continues to look at ways to improve our services, and of course we're always open to suggestions on how to do that. We're also extremely interested in what the current needs are, and how we can improve to bring services in a more productive manner to the residents. We do that by surveys as well as speaking directly to the clients that we do serve. I would be happy to answer any of the town's questions that they may have about what we do and how we do it and whatever.
Leanne Prentice, Brenda, last year, I can't remember if it was you or somebody else who presented last year. Whoever it was had a cold, so maybe it's this time of year that
That would have been me.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And so the select board said to all the nonprofits that came before us last year that we were really concerned with the fact that Tamworth has an exponentially high outside agency dollar amount compared to all surrounding towns. I think last year was in the ballpark of $175,000+. And we said to all the nonprofits that we really wanted to see a formula for how you determine the rate, and that level funding to us feels suspect. Because it doesn't seem like it reflects actual dollar amounts. So even if you're not gonna, even if you spent $300 and whatever thousand on Tamworth resident, 300 and whatever thousand on Tamworth residents, how do you come up with 6,327? Is it a percentage? Is it you're only asking us for the match that you need? To make that federal match? How do you come up with it? That's the first part of the question. And the second thing I want to put out to you is that we also shared with you last year our concerns that were brought to us by our welfare officer, with frustration that the different services offered by TRICAP were not responsive. People weren't answering the phone, they weren't calling back, the doors were locked when people came over. And I'd like you to address, first of all, how you come up with that number, and secondly, what you feel you all have done to improve service provision since our experience that we shared last year.
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
And those are both very fair questions. First of all, we do use a formula when we request funding from towns. And that is a dollar amount formula. And I was just looking in the paperwork that was sent to you. I see it does show what we've requested from the other towns. It is either a $2 or a $2.25 per resident request. We used to just have, and I'm talking like 10, 15 years ago, it was like a random amount that we needed to come up with a total match amount for our federal dollars. But towns wanted to know, what is our formula? So back in, I believe it was 2020 or 2021, we came up with a base amount per resident that we utilized, multiplied that by, and I can get you the exact amount, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay.
It's either $2 or $2.25 per resident that we multiply by the amount of residents in the town, and that's what we ask the town for, as opposed to just picking a random number.
So if your request for 2023, 2024, and 2025 has been the exact same amount, does that mean the exact same number of residents have used your services? There hasn't been any increase or decrease?
We go by your population, residents.
Oh, okay.
Yes. I mean,
I
our
got
numbers of how many residents we help is gonna fluctuate from year to year.
Okay.
Sometimes it may be more, sometimes it may be less, but we stay static with what we're currently asking per total population.
Gotcha, thank you.
Yeah. And the second part of your question is, I'm sure you've had several people, other businesses may have gone through the same thing we did. When COVID hit, we had to lock our offices for the safety of the staff as well as the general public. During that time, we lost several of our employee staffs, just to attrition and those who no longer wanted to be working during COVID. Since that time, we've been able to replace the staff currently that are working outside of the Tamworth, or out of the Tamworth office. Although our doors still remain locked, I will be perfectly honest with you, we have had some issues with some people who were extremely aggressive when they got in the building. And the safety of our staff is first and foremost. So that's why we have the drop box. And now that the phones are being monitored more closely, we can set up appointments with people to be able to come in the building. But we had several instances, unfortunately, where we had to have the police brought to the building, because it was a safety issue for our staff.
Thank you.
Sure.
That's all I have.
Yeah, that's what we discussed last year, so that's good.
I see a Berlin address. You indicated you have a Tamworth office?
Yeah, on 16 Coral.
Okay. Never noticed that.
Yeah.
Huge building right by Gilbert Block. And
Okay.
whatever, propane.
Gotcha.
Point of information, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Does the Tri-County CAP receive any funding from the county government separately?
No, we do not receive any funding from the county.
Okay, thank you.
Any from the state, or is it all federal?
It's, the bulk of it is all federal that filters down through the state, we're the
Right.
subrecipient.
Right.
Yeah. And you're the only agency that deals with, other than towns' welfare funding, you're the only agency that deals with the federal support for things like weatherization and fuel assistance, is that correct?
Yes, yes, that is correct, yep. We are the sole source of those funds from the federal government to
Okay.
provide those services.
Just kidding, I guess I do have more questions. It seems like the support for homelessness has shifted to the Berlin office. So how do people from Tamworth access those services at this point?
We still have representation working out of our Tamworth office. Again, through attrition, it is one person. So what we've set up is a, I guess you could call it a hotline, but it will roll over. Our main housing is based in Littleton and Bethlehem. So the staff there will take on the calls. A lot of the calls that we do get in are from 211. And those can be referrals for residents within Tamworth or the outlying towns. But what we try to do is make sure that those phone calls are being answered. The staff have cell phones that the main office number will roll to, so that they're able to still speak to the people or get back to them if they have to leave a message. Again, our entire housing services right now has, I believe it's 4 or 5 staff people. We've not been able to hire to replace the people yet.
Yeah.
We're still advertising, but boy, it's hard to find people who can work.
Yeah. So just to be clear, so if somebody from Tamworth is unhoused and they call, what direction does your staff give them? Is there funding available for support for them, for a motel room or something, if it's a below zero night, or do they have to go up to the housing that you have in Littleton, and whatever the other place was you said, Bethlehem?
Actually, right now, we're the recipient again this year of what's called cold weather funds through the federal government, which again filters through the state. And that allows us to send money to individual town welfare officers to be able to put people up in hotels. We had the same funding last year. So what we did is we reach out to town welfare officers, say, hey, we got this funding again. If you have someone who comes in or needs to be sheltered during cold weather events, please either contact us or have them contact us, and we will make sure that they are put up into a hotel or a motel for the duration of the cold weather event.
And I recall last year that money ran out pretty quickly.
Last year, yes, we still had a small amount of funds left towards the end of the year, but most of the towns used up everything that they had been allotted. And we did take some that some towns weren't using and put those funds towards other towns who still needed more. The state doesn't give us a lot of money to be able to do it. I think in Carroll County, and don't quote me on this, but I think in Carroll County, it's only like $60,000, which isn't, it sounds like a lot,
No,
but
it's
it's not.
not. Yeah.
Yeah,
And does Carroll County get a little extra money since we're the only county in the state without any kind of
Shelter.
homeless shelter?
unfortunately, the state assigns how much we get for each county. So unfortunately, that allotment is all we get. I would love for it to be more, we'd all love for it to be more, especially during the winter months. But that's what they allotted to Carroll County.
Okay. Great answers, thank you.
I have
Sure.
a quick one for you. I noticed that there's 0 Tamworth residents noted on the USDA food distribution line. Is there any way that Tamworth residents can take better advantage of that?
Actually, that figure is incorrect, because our USDA food delivery is at our Tamworth building. And then from the Tamworth building, it goes to your area food banks. So although it says 0, our problem is being able to track the actual people who are recipients of those food sources,
Sure.
because they go to all the food banks in the area. And a lot of people are not gonna give up information, well, I'm from Tamworth or I'm from Ossipee, we don't ask them. The food is there for them to have. So it does say 0, but our drop spot for USDA in Carroll County is actually Tamworth.
Excellent.
And then the food banks come to us and get their allotment that they had ordered, and it gets loaded into their vehicles and then brought to whatever food bank they're operating.
Thank you.
Okay. I am actually done now.
Thank you very much, Brenda.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Glad you're doing well this year. Yeah.
Yeah, this year I'm great, Janae's not great.
Okay.
But thank you, everybody, have a good night.
You
Thanks,
too.
you too.
Okay. And then we've got Kathy from Children's Unlimited, who's also with us on Zoom.
Hi, Kathy.
Good evening, everyone. How are you?
Well,
Great,
yourself?
thanks.
Good. I'm glad everybody is well that's here tonight. My name is Kathy Livingston. I am the director of the Family Connections Resource Center at Children Unlimited. And I wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time to listen to the nonprofits. We know that budgets are incredibly difficult. So we really appreciate you letting us have the opportunity to come and speak about what we're seeing with families. In Tamworth, I absolutely love the community connections that we have. We have some great relationships with Mary Cronin at the library. We met with her recently to talk about how the bookmobile could possibly come to some of our play groups. And we also have a good connection with Julie Lenoy, who is also here today too. So I feel that that's the strength of our Family Resource Center. There's one in each county of New Hampshire, so we encompass all the towns in Carroll County. We do ask the towns for funding, and we're asking Tamworth for level funding again. We have seen an increase in the number of families, and what we're hearing from them is the struggles with trying to afford rent, with trying to afford food, diapers, transportation. And so we really try to listen to what families are saying in the here and now, and how can we help. So some of the things that we have done are coordinating with the schools and being able to drop off some of the 68 hours of hunger food bags for families. We also pick up food for families that cannot get to the mobile food pantries. We will volunteer there to help because we feel like this is such a vital need. What we're hearing from a lot of families is that the age group of 0 to 5, both caregivers and children, don't have a lot of opportunities in the county for experiences, so we have 4 different play groups that are ongoing, and all of our services are free, so a family doesn't have to worry about, do I have to fill out a long application, or how much is this going to cost me? So we provide those opportunities for children to be able to play together, but also for those families to foster those social connections. We feel it's so important to be able to talk about what the resources are in our community, but being able to know that there's a neighbor they can turn to, or there's another family who lives down the street that they can offer support for each other. We feel that that is a very vital piece and very much needed. Something else that we've developed over the last couple of years are 3 diaper depots in Carroll County where families can come and we just ask for what town are they from and what size diapers or wipes are they needing so that we're able to replenish that. So we try to keep it very low barrier and also a place where families can come and just take what they need. So there's one located at White Mountain Community Health Center in Conway, the Tri-County CAP building in Tamworth, and also Ossipee Concerned Citizens in Ossipee. Families don't have to be from a particular town. They can just go to the area that's closest to them, or the agency rather, to pick up the diapers. We've also
Can I just ask a quick question before we get into the next thing? If
Sure.
it's the TriCap building, which we've just heard is locked during the day, how do folks pick things up? Do they have to call and schedule an appointment?
Yeah, that's been something that we've heard from families too, is actually being able to get into the building. So what we've tried to do is partner with Head Start, with Angel, who works at Head Start there, and also Abby Eldridge, to make it easier for families. So if they want to be able to pick up diapers, we try to coordinate with them. Also, I've heard that Angel Bean is part of the state diaper pilot program, which we are part of too, where it's a little more intensive, where families do have to fill out an application, they have to have diaper ID, and the part of it is that families are able to get all the diapers that they need on a monthly basis. So if they have 1 child, they can get diapers for that child. If they have 2 or 3 still in diapers, they're able to get diapers for their number of children that they have.
Yep.
So the state is piloting this, looking at what is the need. So that's something else that we're offering to families. And we currently at Children Unlimited have 15 families that are enrolled, but there's a couple different agencies so that we're able to come back to the state and say, this is a very much needed thing, and that it needs to be funded. That's what we always run into, trying to keep our diaper depots kind of going. Grassroots is really difficult with donations and diaper drives. So we really try to listen to what families are saying, what they're experiencing, and then trying to find that common ground of, well, what can we do about this? What are the resources that are available? So we really have our programming geared towards what families are needing. So we will meet with families in their home. We will meet them out in the community. We can meet through Zoom, on the telephone. We will meet them at schools. If there's particular things that we can be of assistance with, do they need help managing a bedtime routine? Do they need help getting onto New Hampshire Easy, accessing resources, things like that? So we have our play groups, we have support groups, we have our Watch Me Grow program where we track a child's development and see, are there areas where, okay, there might be some delays in language, should there be a referral to a speech pathologist or to a doctor? So we're really trying to just look at the family holistically and be able to provide services that way to them.
Do you do any support for families, grandparents or other relatives who are raising small children as opposed to the biological parents?
Absolutely. That is one of our biggest programs, is our kinship program. Carroll County has the highest number of grandparents or other relative caregivers taking children who are not their own. Mm-hmm. So we have multiple kinship support groups that are going on. We also have some small funding that we're able to help with some concrete needs, such as, do those children need clothing that have just come into care? that, grandparents may not have been raising children for a number of years, and now there's 2 young children living in your home. And also just navigating the school systems and how do you parent a child who's 2 in 2025 now, very different when they were parenting. So this is a huge, huge area where we know that parents need a lot of help, and it's all different kinship caregivers that we're able to support. So that's one of our biggest programs, and we really see and hear the stories of how it is to raise and the different struggles that families are dealing with in relation to this. But it's so vital and so needed, and the state is really looking to place kids in care with families, with neighbors, with their own support system, as opposed to trying to do fostering, just to keep those connections going. So anything that we can do to help with that, we've been doing our best with that too. Thank you for that point.
Does that include, one thing that I see a lot of is grandparent age people like really struggling with all of the online applications they have to complete for any kind of support at all. Is that something that your agency works with?
Absolutely. So if we go into a caregiver's home, we'll bring our computer if they don't have one, or we'll sit down, or we'll use a library, one of the pods in the common library, or any of the libraries in all of the towns are very helpful, because that is a huge, huge need, and things are always changing with that. So we will sit down and take the time with the family to fill out any applications that they need help with. And if we need help with that, we'll sit and make a phone call and put everybody on speakerphone so that we can figure it out. But that is a definite huge need, is how do we even access this, even though we know about it? That can be intimidating and daunting.
Right, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions?
Oh, did we ask about the?
Oh, about the formula?
Yeah, same question that we asked Brenda. How do you come to the 3822 number?
Yeah, that is a good question. So I was trying to look back to see where that had originated, and it looks like in previous funding requests that we were going off of a basic unit of service cost, which was $273. I would have to get back to you on the origin of that or exactly what that encompasses, but I've noticed that that rate has stayed the same throughout our requests.
Yeah, it seems if you've got a unit cost, then that number would change every year with the number of people you're serving.
Right, I know the number of people we're serving is going up.
Yeah.
It's always been our hope to keep it at level funding, and again, writing for grants, asking for donations, looking to kind of close that gap in different ways rather than asking the towns for more money.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay.
Any other questions for Kathy?
Nope.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time very much. Have a good evening.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you.
We've got Miss
Okay.
Julie.
Now we get to the Tamworth Community Nurse Association.
Okay, I'm Julie Lanoy, the Executive Director of Tamworth Community Nurses. Thank you so much for having us here and just for our long-standing partnership since TCNA was formed. I know that you're all familiar with that TCNA's been here a long time, that we've been providing nursing services to the residents of Tamworth for over 100 years. But since I started my role, I have been asked a lot, what exactly does that mean? What does TCNA do? What is nursing? What is community nursing? And so, having had to explain that a lot, I think it's the best way that I can explain that to you, to really illustrate it concretely, is with just 3 different scenarios that happened this week on Monday. And so the first one is a situation where a resident had called the office to say, I'm having some new symptoms they were concerned about. We made a home visit, and during our assessment, we recognized that the symptoms were significant, not warranting like a 911 call, but definitely needing to be assessed by a physician really quickly. And because that person is homebound, and because of a lot of variables getting out of the house to go, which is not uncommon to be a difficult thing for people, wasn't possible. We were able to facilitate a virtual appointment using our technology in their home, bringing the provider into their home while we were able to help with some of the physical assessment pieces, supporting their provider to support them, which meant we were able to have an intervention happen before it became crisis level, saving also potential ambulance time and them having a more serious outcome. So that's also exciting to be able to start using some virtual technology to help those access issues. Same afternoon, we helped somebody troubleshoot. They have a home monitor that they use to monitor some blood levels for a health condition. It hadn't been working, they were having problems making it work. We were able to get it working again. This was late in the afternoon, discovered once it was working a critical lab value that required adjustment in their medicine. So we were able to get that information to their provider, who was able to make that adjustment right away, rather than them having delayed getting that information. So that was avoided potential conflicts of them being at risk because they didn't have the information they needed. And then same day, late in the day, checking in with a 93-year-old person who lives alone, who has been declining in health, and said, I know that I'm coming near the end of my life, and I'm thinking about Jimmy Carter, and I really don't want to, I've talked a lot about Jimmy Carter this week, I really don't want to have to leave my house. I live alone, I don't know who can take care of me, and I know that I need more help to make it. How do I get hospice? What am I going to do? And we spent the next hour or so talking about what her final wishes are, what maybe we can help pull together with various other resources and partners so that she can stay home. And so what I was thinking about as I was trying to help illustrate what does TCNA do, what really becomes clear to me, and I hope does for you, is that any of those individuals that I just described, if they lived in another town, even our neighboring town, none of those encounters would have happened, because those services don't exist there because they aren't funded there. And so that's really the true value of what we have to offer. TCNA, as you know, was formed to be a safety net for the people of Tamworth, and it still is. So even though the healthcare system has changed a lot, as it has the entire world since 1921, TCNA's role is still filling those gaps. So we frequently get referrals actually from our visiting nurse agency partners who call us up to say, could you see and follow so-and-so, because the nursing service they need is not something that's covered by Medicare or the home care services we have. So we're offering something that doesn't exist in another way. And the reality of that is that there aren't reimbursement mechanisms in our current healthcare system that pay for the kind of services we do, which all stem from a model based on community and also rely on community investment for them to exist. So I want to explain a little bit about how our budget is set up. Our funding in the last decade has really had three almost equal components. So a third of our budget comes from interest from an endowment that was established when we were founded, a third from grants and our fundraising efforts, and then a third from town appropriation. So 100% of our nursing services are provided to Tamworth residents, and we consistently serve 350 residents annually, some of them many, many times over. We had 2,037 home office and phone visits in 2024. And so this year, for the first time in I think 10 years, we have reduced our request for funds, both in real terms, as terms of less dollars, but also as less of a percentage of our total budget. And our hope is that that will continue over time. It's been a really huge year for TCNA and for the town of Tamworth, with the building project getting completed, with us moving into our space, and then the expansion of town offices. One of my favorite things about the new space is the community room, and we've been able to start doing community programming there. Some of those things have included We have wonderful monthly visits from the village preschoolers who come over and they're learning about different health things. We've offered CPR classes for parents and parents of infants specifically, which stem from a collaboration with Amy Carter at the library when there were parents expressing concerns about dealing with emergencies. So we partnered with them and they came over and did a class with us. We also did our first hybrid training recently in partnership with the VA, so trying to reach out to more veterans and also supporting the service providers in our community who frequently encounter traumatic events and supporting them. So I'm really looking forward to more to come in 2025 in terms of the program and expanding what we can offer in terms of new public health programming with our community partners, and really our goal to maximize that space we have. The funds we're asking for are to really cover that core nursing services that I described in the beginning that don't exist in any other way. We know that in terms of grants, they're more likely to fund specific kinds of projects or specific kinds of new programs. It's really difficult to fund nursing services as they are. And so that's what that ask is for.
I'm gonna say the same thing that I've been saying, in a different way though. It looks like, and I said this last year, June, I can't remember if you presented last year or if you
Good, I'm glad you
came.
can't remember.
Yeah, I can't, we said it to whoever came, that, it really looks like TCNA for a long time asked for $25,000, then it went up, and I was on the TCNA board for a long time, I was the chair of the board for a long time, and back in those days, we were asking for $25,000, and at the end of my tenure, we said, let's bump it to 40. It got bumped to 80 on the floor of town meeting, and I actually have a hard time with that because the select board creates a budget and budget recommendations based on what's presented in the warrant. The town can do whatever it wants to do, clearly. They have every right to do that, and that's what town meeting's for. But to bump it up by 100%, and then continue to build your budget around that, it would be one thing if, I think if an organization said, we need this extreme lift because of this, and we're gonna show you that in the next 5 years, we're gonna reduce that back down by increasing our grant funding, by increasing our ability to raise an annual fund, whatever else it is, what the other nonprofits do to bring in money. But we haven't seen TCNA do that, and TCNA's ask from the town is like exponentially larger than any other organization. The next biggest ask is like 35 or 38,000 or something from Meals on Wheels, and 75,000 is like more than twice that. So I guess what I want to see, not wearing my hat, being a nonprofit agent that works to help people, but wearing this fiscal responsibility hat is, what happens if we say no? What happens if we don't support you?
So I've thought about this a lot, you can
Yeah.
imagine. I mean, as someone who also runs a nonprofit, as being in month 5 of this job,
Yeah.
it would be hard for me to specifically say, but I know that what our process would be the board would be taking a look at what are we going to prioritize. I don't know how it would specifically affect staffing and services. We're always going to prioritize the core nursing services like I described in the beginning. Continuing to build on our fundraising as we have.
Because the grant income's not very high.
So like I said, it's, as I've been spending a great deal of time on researching grants for specific, if we were to launch a specific kind of new program, there's grant funds for that, potentially grant funds for that. But core nursing services that don't have another kind of reimbursable system, that don't frequently exist in other places at all, not a lot is out there.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna give you an example of what I think of. You just gave some really cool examples of how you're bringing technology to people to solve problems in their own homes, people who can't get out of their homes. You gave 2, like, really impressive examples for Little Tamworth to have that kind of technological outreach. So if you look at your services and you break down what you're doing and say that you want to be able to expand your use of technology with patients and do 50% more use of whatever, however you phrase it, like that's grantable, that kind of thing. So it's really the kind of nursing services you're providing or healthcare services you're providing, but you're focusing on an element of it. I just don't know if the town can continue. Right now, we have, with this revaluation, we have so many people on the verge of losing their homes for their taxes. And these are not large tax bills, but when some of these tax bills, yeah, the percentage increase is numbing. So we're asking everybody to pay for services when they can't even pay for their home. So it's really a challenge to have an amount this high. And I guess I just want to hear, not the wonderful things you do, because those are valid and real and important, but how you're going to support those if the town taxpayers can't give you the whole freight. It's a hard question, but you guys it's like the biggest amount being asked of us.
It is. I have other people from our team here that I want to just ask if they want to add to that.
Yeah.
Do you have anything you'd like to add?
Well, as we presented before, we showed you how our budget is spent, and like 80, I forget the percentage, but most of the budget is staffing. And yes, you can apply for a grant for technology or for a trail. We're trying to get grants for a trail or building, but organizations will never fund your operation. You have to have a stable operating organization, and you're asking for a grant for that organization to do a program. But there are very few granting agencies that will fund the core mission, that that has to be a stable thing.
Unrestricted, yeah.
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
So, I think we're very sensitive to this. We're hoping that we can manage better with the new building. We haven't even been through a full year yet, so we're not. Hopefully the solar and lots of things we've taken on more because we have the building. But I think to directly answer your question, I mean, if this went down and we didn't get that money, as she said, the board would have to meet and probably let some people go and reduce services. We would just have to manage. I mean, the town people are very, very generous with fundraising. We still, in spite of having given so liberally and generously to the building, they're still responding to our mail appeals. We'll obviously try to up that, but we would just have to take it as it came. If it's a lot of money. I don't know how much that reflects on an individual tax bill. $80,000, actually 75 this time, but. So we don't really have a good answer for that because we have to sort it out when we heard what the town really is going to offer. And yes, if you recall, when it bumped up to 80,000, there was a crisis because TCNA had given virtually all of its assets to help build this building, and then got less space actually than we were originally promised, and so we couldn't meet payroll at that time, as I recall. I mean, I had just come to Tamworth, and so I think we're still recovering from all that. I'm going to stop because there just isn't a good, I'm just beating around the bush because there's not a good answer to the question. We realize that we're grateful for what the town does. I think they're great, people who we serve are very grateful for our services, but for the people that have to pay taxes, that doesn't matter. Really just doesn't understand, it just doesn't matter.
Yes.
If I may make a comment, I'm Maureen Diamond and I am a board member speaking in that context, and I only have just one point to make. This request has gone down this year in recognition of it is a big ask. We know that. We want to do better. We want it to continue to go down, but we can't do that responsibly all at once. So it's the beginning of an effort.
It's also interesting that the amount is the same, but it's as a percentage of our budget is much less. In real dollars, it's much less. $80,000 in 2012 would be, I forget what now, but I know that doesn't help, because it's still $80,000.
Right.
But it isn't, you know, with inflation devaluing money, we've been pretty responsible about at least holding where we are.
I just want to point out that Becky, I believe, asked, is it possible to charge for Medicare or health insurance encounters, like blood draws, vaccines, immunizations, VA community care visits?
Not with the current model and structure we have, it would actually increase administrative costs to work with Medicare considerably in a way that would not be possible.
We'd have to hire people to do that.
Right.
Yeah, it's hard to work with that billing structure without extremely more administrative work, you know.
I think you might have already, excuse me, answered this with the increase that Leanne brought up from 40 to 80,000 that year. But if, besides paying or helping with the building offset costs, is there anything that was added to the offerings with that money that year that, you know, we're looking for, well, why all this money? But I don't have a memory of that time. I didn't live in Tamworth at that time. So is there something that you were able to do with that money at that juncture?
Do you mean at the time that it went up to 80?
Correct, that
So-
has proceeded to this day.
You mean like where services increased?
Correct.
Because of it?
So I wasn't here, so I can't speak to that, but I don't know if June can. I know it was at that time.
I think one of the promises was 7 days, you know, you can call TCNA anytime. In other words, we're going to be available to people whenever they call. Not quite 24/7, but close to 24/7. And, but other than that, it was just a question of remaining viable, because
Right.
the payroll was in deficit by $6,000 to $7,000, as I recall at that time, because of the fiasco with this building. So we're still recovering, frankly, and you know, hoping to continue to do better, and fundraising is going with breathing a sigh of relief. We thought we gave so generously for the building that our annual giving might go down, but I think it called attention to what we're doing, and fundraising is actually slightly up. I mean, meeting our budget expectation. So
My hope is that with this, we're being cautious, not knowing, well, what is the new building's expenses really, you know, anytime you're in a new place, really learning this year. It's only been since summer, so I think we have in the year ahead a much better idea of what does it really cost us, utilities and all that stuff, that we have a better idea of operationally how it affects us, and the hope is that it goes down, that next year's less.
Yes.
That would be a success in my mind.
TCNA's been working with the same kind of office time model for a long, long time, and like one thing that would make me feel
Me too,
a
Leanne.
little bit better about the number you're requesting is the fact that I understand there's 2,000 encounters, but it's only 350 community members. So if we're asking the whole town to support the agency, it's working with 10% of the town's population.
I think if we look at just the sickest people, the most vulnerable people are probably gonna be in that 10%, right? Because they are, that's just the nature of the demographic. And so we see a lot of people not at when office hours are. In fact, probably more that are not during office hours than are. But we are most likely in the next month starting to have Saturday hours during market time. I'm working on that, just in how I can personally staff that, and that will not involve more staff time, but just shifting time. That's one of the ways we're handling that. I'd like to see that too.
I mean, I just think about families and working people who, if it's 9 to 11, you're
Same
not
exact
able to
question I
access it.
asked in my interview is, when we think about increasing capacity, what does that mean? And that's one way. I think also just public health programming that reaches different people and different interests is a big focus for me of what we can offer, because I really want us to focus on what makes us unique, rather than duplicating other services that are there, because then that dilutes everybody's effort. But what do we do that makes us offering something that doesn't exist anywhere else?
The last thing I'll say is, and I haven't been on the board for a long time, we did bring up at different times, should we charge fees for some services on a sliding scale? So those who really can't afford it don't pay anything, but those that can, like if I go in to get a COVID test, I can pay for the COVID test, I'm able to, and I should. That's the kind of thing that, if you're looking at a robust business model for a nonprofit, that you could start considering as a way to continue to bring that number you're requesting the town down. If you are coming here to me and saying, we're asking for this, we've dropped it by 5,000, and here's our hint for next year, and here's our plan for the next 5 years to get it down to 40,000 or whatever it is, and we're gonna be working on our business model. TCNA is a blessing and it's a gift, and I think it rests, unfortunately though, a lot on the fact that it's a blessing and a gift, and I think it's really important right now. Tamworth is a super poor town, and it's really important for you, your board, to look at this as a business and not just as a really important, kind, nurturing thing that we do. It is an important, kind, nurturing thing, but it is also a business. And is the business model sustainable is an important question. And I know some of the people you've got on your board, you've got a bunch of smart people on your board.
We're lucky.
Who, yeah, you're really lucky. So I would just really encourage that kind of thinking, so that you can think about ways that are not going to deprive people who really need the healthcare support, and there are many, from what they need. You're not going to add an extra layer of burden, financial or otherwise, onto them. But encourage those of us who can pay something toward healthcare support to start using you for those things instead of going to CVS. That's like leaving money on the table, and that could be an income stream that lets you do this important work. That's just one example that popped into my head. But there's been resistance, I think, around the mystique of TCNA for a long time, about taking money because it was set up as a free nursing service for all people in Tamworth. 1923 or 1919 or whatever it was is not 2025. And I think that there's got to be a shift in the variation of income streams to help sustain this work, yeah. Because it is important, and it would be too bad if it couldn't be sustainable or you ended up being in a deficit model again.
Right.
I encourage the board to think in those
We do
directions.
that with the flu. Most people donate for when when I go get a flu shot, I don't assume it's free. I always, put 15 or 20 bucks or whatever, but we could make that more explicit, and actually almost required, if
Yeah, or
without-
offer other services that we go to other places for, that your staff is able to do as a fee-for-service model. I don't know, it's just a thought that if you're coming asking for money, I would like to see a more robust business model.
Can I ask, there was talk once about kind of renting the space to physicians, and are you able to do that? Is that part of the?
So not physicians, I believe that's in our
Our nursing organization, our articles of incorporation say we're a nursing organization, and so we haven't tried to change that. But we are looking at other professions, including nurse midwives, foot care, and mental health. Those are three that we've decided to focus on to see if we can recruit people who would provide services independently of TCNA, but in our space.
And you'd gather rent from that?
Modest rent, yeah. So they would have their own total business model, including billing, recruiting patients, handling changes, appointments, and all.
Yeah, it would be really about this site in utilizing this space being increasing access for people not to have to travel as far would be the advantage for people. It would be free service.
I don't think that would not be a big income stream for us.
No.
Because we're not gonna, if it most of those people have their own facilities,
They're
and
not-
they're renting where they are.
They're not
So
looking for
they're
more
not
places
looking
to
for-
be practicing.
It would just be a way to bring our patients to them in a convenient way for our people, so they don't have to travel.
But we do anticipate some
Yes,
exciting opportunities within the next 6 months, I would say.
and they will be charged something for using the space, but not.
The other thing I would say as we look at 2024 numbers is that Julie came on board 5 months ago.
Right.
And I think even in those 5 months, the demographics of the population served has changed.
Great.
And I think in 2025, at the end of 2025, you're going to see some really nice changes in terms of population served and services offered.
We also, I have to say, because I'm so excited, we implemented an electronic record system today for the first time in the history of TCNA.
Wow.
And we got it for free through an arrangement where it was available to nonprofits. And I'm really hoping that also just sort of streamlines some things and elevates our level of professional communications and ability to exchange information. So, and because it has recording capacities that I'm hoping will give us a different kind of ability to collect data too. It's all starting.
Yeah, great.
I just want to, Leslie Johnson on Zoom also has her hand raised.
Yes, the question was raised, could we charge? And our charter, our mission says that we will offer free nursing care. So we cannot charge according to the way it is set up now. However, we do ask, we do have a jar that says donations, and we do mention that people, we gladly accept that. I think that we certainly can encourage more donations, as Leanne suggested, for those who are able to do it. But I think it is unique that many people use it because they have no other resource and they don't have the insurance. And so I think it's very important to keep that. I think the past 2 years have concentrated so much on the building, and now we have a new building and we have a new executive director who's very aware of all the questions that you are raising, Leanne. And I saw in the past few months many attempts to do that, and I think as you said, I think we have an excellent board, and they are cognizant of that, and I think they will work. And I would, as Maureen said, I think that next year, I think you'll find a big change. When you have no income, we don't have any income, so we depend on those 3 sources. So we've got to find ways to manage that better, to increase our own taking in donations and contributions and cutting costs. And I think they will do that. I think you'll find a big change in the next year.
Thank you, Leslie. I will just say as a point of information that in the state of New Hampshire, nonprofits can change their bylaws so that you do have if the board saw fit to create some sliding scale or some mechanism for accepting fee for service. I realize that the original charter has language that restricts that, but there's a process.
This is what I get for letting my kids play with my iPad.
Yeah, but you could change that if you saw fit, so that you could make that mechanism ethically and lawfully under your bylaws. Was that
May I respond to that?
Yes.
Certainly that could be, but I think the great value is that we do offer this service, and if we can find ways within our organization and with the support of the town and other people to keep it as it is, I think it is a splendid thing. So many other towns say they wish they had what we have, and I hope that we could do that. That's all.
Good point.
I had another question. You mentioned the endowment. Is that listed on the income somewhere? I didn't happen to
That
see it.
says Tamworth Foundation.
That's the Tamworth Foundation.
Yep.
So do they manage the endowment, and that's,
So we get the interest on that.
okay.
We do 4%. It's been growing, so that's been helpful, naturally.
Yeah, in the last few years.
It was set up about in 1960, Mrs. Whittemer. Anyway, when she donated, this property was donated on the condition that TCNA be allowed to use this property as well, and there's all that history there, but that's amazing. I think I asked David Little how much her original endowment was, and I think it was like $200,000.
Oh, I don't even think it was that much. I think
it was like a
pennies, yeah.
And now the Tamworth
Compounding,
Foundation is holding,
compounding.
I mean, it's amazing. And of course, when all of us die, we're gonna leave money to TCNA.
Well, thank you for coming in.
Yes.
Thanks
Appreciate
for
your
having us.
time.
Thanks
And
for
putting up
jumping
with-
into the new job,
Putting up with
too.
Leanne's grilling.
Everybody gets grilled.
Thanks for,
I will say my daughter recently had an unexpected surgery, and so we were quickly looking for some crutches and a wheelchair, and it was so amazing to reach out to TCNA and no question, yeah, come on down, get them, no problem. It was
Great.
such a blessing. So
Glad to
thank you
hear
very
it.
much.
How's she doing?
She's great. Yeah, she's. I can't believe she can run on crutches that well.
There goes the other leg.
yeah,
Yeah.
say, let's not have a redo of that.
Now the doctor wants her putting a bunch of weight on it, so she's doing it.
Well, thank you for all coming in. Thank you, Leslie, for your input.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Night. Okay.
So, oh, sorry, just gonna say, we had a federal emergency grant come in at the last hour of 2024,
Right.
so,
I am going to move to accept unanticipated federal emergency management award in the amount of $8,147.78 as 2024
Second.
roll call.
And that came
Oh,
from, and that
was
came
FEMA.
from what? Oh, that's the FEMA.
FEMA
Spring
from the
storm.
From the April storm?
April storm, yeah.
That's all we got for it?
there's a second portion to this grant that is still in process.
Okay.
That's more upwards of like the $34,000, and that's looking promising, but it just hasn't been committed yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
And where does it go? Do we know where?
where it just
Probably,
gets,
I mean,
I assume it's unassigned fund balance, or?
yeah,
is
I
there-
mean, it will, and then it, it offsets, but the money got spent. I think Richard said he spent $200,000
Yeah.
on that storm.
yeah, so it's just reimbursed
Yeah.
Mhm.
to the general fund.
So who's managing the other half of that now?
Right, for emergency management
Yeah, that's
director?
another question on our agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody right now,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
All right, roll call vote.
You say yes?
Aaron, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
I just, yes.
Okay. Old business.
yes, my mistake. So you remember we motioned to encumber funds at last meeting. Regarding the hazardous mitigation plan, I gave you the number of 3,500 to encumber. That is what we actually spent. We have 4,000 to encumber. So you can just motion to amend that.
Okay.
And then subsequently, for the energy improvements on town buildings, that number was incorrect only because I didn't have the updated expenditure detail report. So I gave you the number 8,400, it's actually 8,810. So these are just two motions that we need to amend. I already amended the minutes. So just some
All
housekeeping.
right. I move to amend the motion from last meeting to encumber $4,000 for the hazardous mitigation plan.
Second.
Roll call vote.
You say yes?
There, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
I just, yes.
And I move to amend the motion to encumber $8,810 for the energy improvements to town buildings.
Second.
Roll call vote.
You say yes?
There, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
I just, yes.
Robert, yes.
Oh, we forgot about you.
Emery, I forgot you were there. Sorry.
Bull.
All right, well, let's get a transfer station update from Richard Doucette.
Emily and I have been working on the compactor issue, the new ground level compactor. We're going to try to get Todd from Atlantic Recycling out there to get some feedback on exactly where it should go. And also, we need to identify some contractors for the concrete slab and for the electrical. So if anybody has names of contractors or individuals who do that kind of work, could you get them to me by next week?
Yeah.
So we can,
Next meeting or next?
next week.
Next week, okay.
So we can, instead of just requesting
Yeah.
bids, really send it to people and
Yeah.
improve our chances. And if the amount is small enough, if it's, like the electrical could be under 5,000, I don't think the concrete will. But if it's under 5,000, technically we don't need to put out a request for bids, we can just make phone calls and get bids. And that's it.
That's the shortest transfer station update
Yeah.
in 2 years.
And
Oh,
next,
yeah.
next on our agenda is Leanne with our land donation discussion.
So the deed has been transferred for the Tamworth Road property, and tomorrow I'm gonna reach out to LRPC and to Novus Engineering to get phase 2 of the brownfields evaluation going, and the hope is, this is the hope articulated by the Novus, oh my god, I've lost his name in my head, the Novus engineer we've been working with. If we can get phase 2 started ASAP, which is the phase where the engineers actually come to the land and do all the soil sampling, the water sampling, the whatever other sampling to test for contamination, then we can very shortly after work with LRPC to create a cleanup plan if anything is found. And those are all free to the town. Then, once we have a cleanup plan, we can apply for the federal funding for cleanup, if cleanup is necessary.
Yeah.
So the sooner we do that, if you'll remember, the federal funding deadline for the cleanup money is in November. We can hire LRPC to do that federal grant writing. But it would be great to have all of the phase 2 and phase 2.5, which is the creating the cleanup plan, done by early spring so that we can give LRPC time to work on the grant. So I'll give you an update the next meeting.
Great.
Thank you.
Good news. And now, we were gonna discuss the COLA and wage increases. Do you wanna start with that? Or-
Yeah, we just, as I'm getting my hands on the budget, it occurred to me that, the board votes to give standard increases, which is the COLA increase to the staff, it's a 3%. But there haven't been any kind of rules around, so what about people who got, or who were hired within the last 3 months, or people who got wage increases prior to the first of the year. So you guys might just want to do some clarifying on that. And also, we budget increases for the year, however, the wage increases don't actually come into effect until after town meeting in March. And then what happens is salaried employees get a retro check for January, February, March, and hourly employees do not get that retro check. Their increase is effective as of March 15th. So this is for you guys to just discuss. I would only see it's an issue for an hourly employee who knows they're leaving. If they're going to be, retiring in June, they kind of miss out on an increase that they, you could see was due as of the 1st based on their performance. So
My question about that is, just to make sure I'm understanding it, so we say there's a COLA increase of 3%. In March, when the budget passes at town meeting, it puts that money into play. Salaried employees get January 1st through March, and then all the way until the next March, when the next one goes into effect. So they essentially get a year and a half of that increase. But the hourly employees only get a year of the increase because they can't get the retro first half year. Is that right?
It's not half a year, but it's, first
January,
quarter.
February, March, first quarter, yeah.
So we'd like to, I think we should make it the same date, whether it's January 1st or it probably ought to be March for everybody, because that's when the budget gets approved.
I don't understand why anybody gets a retroactive,
Yeah.
and it's not just budget year to budget year. Is there a reason for that?
No, I can't, I can't seem to come up with a reason for
I
that.
assume the select board decided that many years ago,
Yeah.
and we weren't here.
Yeah.
I feel like it's kind of hard to take it, to roll it back if the majority of our employees are salaried and they're used to that.
What
I
are
think-
the numbers, are they? I don't even know.
Who's
What-
salaried?
Yeah,
What percentage?
I assume it's a minority now.
I think so.
Oh, is it?
I'm just guessing, I don't know.
Are all the office people here salaried?
I think just myself and Kim. Here.
Well, I think we should look into that and level it out, however that needs to be leveled out. I think it's weird to do it
Yes.
two different
Yeah.
ways, because we've got people who work for, the road agent is salaried, and that means he's losing out on,
He's hourly.
I mean, he's
right?
hourly, and that means he's lost out on
Yeah.
that retroactive. I don't know why somebody would get a retroactive
Yeah.
pay raise and the other people who are doing like work wouldn't.
So what do other towns that have a town meeting form of government do with their budgetary decisions? Everybody in Sandwich and Madison, do they sit around and wait till March?
You know, I posted on the listserv, but I think because the holiday, I don't know, I didn't get
Okay.
many responses.
We have a.
I can't see who that is. Is it
Oh,
Becky?
Oh.
Oh,
The
no.
select board decided each year how the increase was given. Some years it was voted for the first of the year, other years it was after town meeting.
Oh. Becky, do you know why why would we decide to do it first of the year? And why it's only salaried people and not hourly? Do you know that history?
I don't know if she's.
Now we see if she can type real fast.
I know she had to type it fast, yeah. I think with her connection, she can't always talk
Yeah.
from home.
I agree, it should be something we look into.
I did
Yeah.
call Sandwich and they do it this way too, and she just said this is the way it is. I didn't get much of an answer. So that's,
Tradition.
yeah.
Yeah.
I would think it would be less work, not that it's a ton of work to calculate a retro check and cut them, but like, I can't see why we wouldn't just say all increases as of January 1st.
Yeah.
Or as of March,
Or-
town
yeah.
meeting. Yeah. I mean,
Is the 3% in the budget if we did it January 1st?
Yeah, we budget for the year.
Budget for the whole year.
for everybody.
Yes.
So we're over budgeting if people are not getting that for the first quarter.
Right.
Well, that's silly then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, okay, so if we have the money in the budget, then we should do it all January.
January 1st.
Yeah.
So I think I would just need you folks to make a motion to, well, first you wanna discuss,
The recent hires.
yeah, like, is there, some sort, I don't know if our,
Yeah, I think if the person's gone through their 6-month period,
Yeah.
then we haven't, since I've been on the board, given those increases to people who haven't gone through the 6-month period anyway. I mean, they have to be, if they're probationary, they haven't been given that increase.
Right, if they get through their 6-month probation period, then they're eligible.
And it looks like Becky's written
With a
back.
positive,
okay.
no matter what
Becky-
way it went.
Okay, she says it depended if there had been adjustments to the wage scale during the year versus getting only one increase. And no matter what way it went, everyone received the increase for the same time. Salary and hourly would get a retro if it went back to the first of the year.
That makes sense.
Okay, well, that makes sense,
Thank
so
you,
it was
Becky.
everything, yeah. Well, let's look into it and talk about it again at the next meeting, because I know that when we gave increases to some people in a department,
Right,
the budget reflects those increases, but that department had said no COLA with
Right.
that.
right.
So we have to look at the individuals and do the math. But I think that if it's budgeted right now for January 1st, then everybody should get the January 1st. Retro.
And, okay,
Not
Oh.
retro.
not retro.
Do you mean retro in March then?
In March, they get the
Okay.
retro, the
budget's
filler
filled.
check.
Yeah.
If it's in the budget, if the number's in the budget right now,
I hear it, don't need
Yeah.
to say it again.
okay.
And what's your reasoning for that versus
Just pay them all
increase
starting
was
January
effective
1st.
as of
Yeah.
January 1st?
Because we've already, then we could do that too and reduce the budget.
Doesn't reduce the budget.
No.
Well,
If it has to reduce the budget.
That was my Question was, is
Because
money-
we're paying them, we're either paying them for that first quarter or we're not paying them for the first quarter.
Yep. Well, it would only reduce the budget if people didn't already have it in the budget that we talked about during the budget.
Yeah, so let's look at the numbers.
So it is in there, so I don't, maybe it reduced it the first time you did that way, but not every year, because it just rolls forward. And that's about, I have totally maxed out my understanding of math in general with that.
So let me put it this way, we budgeted for the increases,
Yep.
January through December. Those don't come into effect for all the hourly employees, which is most of the staff, until March 15th. So there is always a little cushion in the budget.
Yeah.
I would think that it'd be easier for everybody to just
Start getting it January.
do increases effective the first, pay
Yeah.
period in January.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Then there's no retro checks.
no.
Makes
no retro-
payroll easier.
And
Yeah,
it makes
no
payroll
retro checks,
easier.
just start January 1st.
I think one thing that we did talk about at our last meeting was to reach out to the road agent to see if the increases he gave, what was his thinking on
Well,
that?
that's what
What
Right.
Leanne
Leanne
just
was saying.
said.
What do you mean,
He-
what was his thinking, why did he do it? Or-
Nope,
Well, no, he
No,
built,
it also-
Did he
built
build in the
COLA into it.
3%?
He did not do 3%.
Yeah.
that was my question.
Yeah.
We
he
should ask him,
expect it?
do you think they should get the 3%?
He said no.
He said.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's,
That's what I'm saying, he didn't build it in because he did not, he thought that the
Increase
for
was
this
good.
year, the increase was sufficient.
Which is similar to, like those of us that were hired within the last, few months. You would think that you're being hired at a wage that already reflects the
Yes.
COLA increase. So,
Okay.
so I think what you guys had kind of agreed upon was that if you're a employee that has already had your 6-month review, then you're entitled to the COLA increase,
Mhm.
right? So so that's
When is the budget hearing, is that February?
February 5th.
If we're gonna institute a change, it certainly is simpler if it's January 1st, but is there a reason we should wait till after the budget hearing?
So, no, only because we are not like a line by line,
right.
But even if the COLA goes into effect January 1st, we don't have the money to pay for it yet until
That's
town
what she
meeting.
was saying we do.
We
Oh, we
do,
do, because,
do.
yeah,
because if that was the
We've already
case, the whole
collected.
town would shut down until town meeting after January 1st.
And no
But
one
we
would have
don't.
any money.
So the money's there.
What happens if the budget doesn't get passed?
Yeah,
so that's kind of what I'm saying. The town doesn't vote on line by line, so nobody can say like, oh, well, so-and-so doesn't deserve
Right.
that increase. They can say, we need you to reduce that overall number,
We'd have to go in and take some things out.
yeah.
Somewhere else, but it wouldn't have to be salaries.
Right.
Could be.
We could go back in and lower everybody's salaries, that's one way to take it out, but
That'll be popular.
you can't ask them for the money back. That's the only thing I'm sure.
That's my point, is we're spending the money before we go.
Yeah, no, we'd have
but I
to,
think one of the reasons that, I'm assuming that Tamworth has done the retro check thing, is that, I know we have still a pretty bulky unassigned fund balance that we could tap in an emergency, but a lot of other towns around us borrow in
Mhm.
first quarter in anticipation of the budget, and we don't. So,
I think the borrowing tends to happen in the last quarter, because you're running out of revenue.
but
That's been my
in
understanding.
any case.
We've never done
well, whatever it is, we don't borrow.
Right.
We don't need to, because we have this big unassigned fund balance, so I think that we're safe
Mm-hmm.
in doing the January
Yeah.
1st thing, unless
Mhm.
we totally run the budget into the ground.
Let's not do that.
Let's not
Let's
do
not do
that.
that.
So Becky does want to know, does the budget reflect everyone getting the 3% COLA for everyone, since it was done prior to their wages being adjusted? And Becky, that's kind of what I'm trying to get to the bottom of. When I'm going through the budget, right, I'm looking at who's gotten the 3% increase and who's recently hired at what wage and who, just got a kind of special increase.
Yeah,
So we don't know the total right in this moment.
Right,
but it's not everybody across the board.
It's not everybody across the board this year.
There won't
And
be
it-
a couple of recent hires or the highway department recent increases.
Right.
right.
Based on what the department has.
Yeah. And there's this thing in the New Hampshire law, this default budget, that's what the town operates on for the first few months of the year before town meeting, so there's money there. It's the budget that was approved last year, but it carries you into the next year. And it's referred to as the default budget. So it's like, it's not like everybody has to go home.
Right.
So, I think it makes sense just to make it January 1st, but I think it would be good to gather a little more information on, does anybody do it that way? And if nobody else does it that way, and they all wait around till March, then that seems weird, but it would be good to know that.
And also see what the number looks like when we go employee by employee
Yeah.
to see.
Okay, I'm
Well,
just
I guess
thinking,
either way, it would be good if everybody got the same treatment.
Right.
Yes.
That's true.
Retro or not, I mean,
Whichever way.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hourly,
Hourly versus
salary,
salary.
yeah. Unless they're mitigating factors, like
Right.
not
But-
being through the probationary period
Yeah,
or
yeah,
just having gotten a big bump.
right.
Yep.
Yeah.
But otherwise, yeah.
Do you need help with that?
no, it's just that it's,
One
I
more
wish
thing.
this were like 4 weeks ago,
Yeah,
because now
yeah.
we're into the
We're in
first pay
January.
period of January.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how this would work, but I'll talk with Elaine and figure it out.
So would it be better just to do a retro check after March then?
And then start this next year?
I don't,
We can?
well, or
Ask
we may
Elaine.
just, at the next meeting, vote it, and then there is a retro check, it's just really small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
It's fair.
okay.
Okay. Wow.
All right, oh, my report?
That's up to you now.
Thank you, Becky, for that information.
Yeah.
Yes, very much.
All right, back, it's back in my court again. All right, bank balance is $5,312,228. The office has been busy. Jeremy Phillips has started, our new rec director. His first day was on Monday. I believe he's at the boys' basketball practice today, meeting coaches and kids, which is great. I think he's gonna do great. I'm excited to have him. It's a lot off my plate, which I appreciate.
Thanks for doing that transition double more than.
Yeah, no, so far so good. I have on here just an update for Club Motorsports communication. As you recall, back in November, we sent a letter to Club Motorsports inviting them to come speak with you guys about noise ordinance, and I did receive an email from them back in, I think it was December 4th. So, but then I gave them our select board meeting schedule and kind of nothing since then. So I did reach out to them again as a reminder, just extending the invite. So that's where that stands. Just it hasn't been forgotten about.
That's based on the letter we sent?
Yeah.
When was the last reminder email?
Today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And just want to clarify in the letter, there was no reference to the noise ordinance.
No,
It was there.
It was their operating
But
plan.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
their operating plan.
And I also just want to announce that Zach Remick has resigned from the Emergency Management Director position. And we just thank him for all of his work that he's done the last few years. And we have posted the position online. Sounds like we have a couple interested people already.
Did his deputy show any interest?
I've tried to reach out to Brad, if you're out there, if you're listening. I've emailed you, I don't have your phone number.
Oh,
But other than bumping into him in the grocery store a couple months ago, I haven't seen Brad, so.
oh, okay, all right.
But didn't he send us that? Wasn't that from him? Oh, no,
And
that
maybe he
was
didn't
different.
want the whole job,
Right,
I don't know.
yeah.
Just-
But the posting is online.
Okay. Good.
Trying to think of what else.
Yeah, budget's a big one.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get everything organized over the next, like February is fast approaching now. And I need to have everything to the DRA by January 14th, so I've been busy. I'm gonna come in on a weekend where there's no interruptions.
Yeah, we've got to keep reminding her that it's easier in the summer.
I keep hearing that. So, but that's all I've got.
Okay. In that case, we'll have select board update. You got anything?
No.
Wow.
I kind of already gave it on the rest of it.
Pretty much.
Transfer station.
Well, I haven't been to any meetings since the last
Went fast, Christmas got in the way.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
holiday.
Yeah. There are some things I don't want us to forget about, but maybe I'll just try to put those on the agenda for another meeting.
Meeting changes, you were gonna announce that?
Oh, yeah, I shouldn't announce that we are changing our select board meeting schedule. We're gonna be meeting on Tuesdays, the second and fourth Tuesday of the month. So our next meeting is the 14th, is that correct?
Yes.
January 14th.
So, that is partly so that people can also go to the school board meetings, which happen on Thursdays. And that's always been a conflict. So, we're hoping that people can now attend both.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Welcome.
yeah. And we're gonna try in the coming year, I'm volunteering for this position, but I'm going.
God bless you.
I'm going to be meeting with, hopefully, meeting with the chairman of the school board and the superintendent once a month, and reporting back to the select board about what's going on at the school, because
We don't know.
we sort of lose track of what's going on at the school, and then they give us this huge budget.
Yeah.
So, we're going to try to be a little more involved. Okay, that's all.
Yeah, with the holidays, I haven't been around very much, so nothing for
Okay.
me.
Mine's just the Brownfields communication, getting that back up.
Good. All right, we'll move into the signature file.
Public input first.
Oh, public input. Anybody? Yes? Ed?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted some clarification. The Tri-County cap, what was their request?
How
I
much?
always miss that.
It was six.
6,327.
And what about Children's Unlimited?
3,822.
My final question is the land donation grant for cleanup? I thought it was the donated land didn't need cleanup, or you were gonna have what's the?
No, we
What's
never
the
said it
site?
didn't need cleanup. What we said is, one reason we had the public hearings and we met with the planning board and we met with the conservation commission is to get feedback about the land. And one thing that came up was concerns about the previous uses of the land and whether there could be toxins. So we worked with LRPC, they've got, I think it's USDA funding for the Brownfields project to reclaim kind of blighted properties in municipal areas. And we did the phase 1 evaluation where an engineer came, did a ton of kind of like paper research, deed research, anecdotal research, historical research, came to the property, looked at it, took photos, looked at evidence, and wrote a report about whether there were red flags, any probability of any kind of toxic whatever. There are some red flags, not huge red flags, but there were some red flags, so that prompts us. And we had to wait till we took ownership of the property to go into phase 2, which is the actual forensic scientific testing to see if there are any toxins present left over from the lumber mill, dip tank, or the trucking business that was there. What those toxins are, and then working with them to create a mitigation plan.
And the phase 2 is fully funded through.
And the mitigation plan 2.5 is also fully funded, so no cost to the town. And and I think we said this in the hearings, the mitigation, the bar for mitigation of whatever toxins might be there is based on the intended use of the property. So if we were gonna put in housing or a playground or a preschool there, the bar is gonna be here for cleanup. If we're gonna put in a solar field or a parking lot or the fire station, the bar is much lower. So we're gonna look at what's there before we worry about the rest of it.
So is that report public?
The phase 1 report?
Yes.
Yes,
It is
sure
now that we own the land, yeah.
So if there's any mitigation that has to be done, who's gonna pay for that?
Well, so if there is cleanup that has to be done, there is some odd $1 billion already in the pipeline for this kind of cleanup. Brownfields was a huge bipartisan push in the past 5 years because it boosts economies in cities and towns, and it also obviously does environmental and health benefit cleanup. So there's a ton of money for it, and LRPC writes grants to secure that funding. The next year, the reason we really want to get the grant application in by November of this year, 2025, is because that cycle of grant funding is 100% covered, no match. And we don't know what will happen the year after, if there ends up being a municipal match or not. And the engineer we worked with obviously can't say anything until the scientific research is done, but he said looking at the use, looking at the site, based on his 25 years of experience doing this, it's a very low likelihood of anything significant.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other public input? Okay, now
Nice to have you here in person, Maureen.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Now the signature file. I move to approve the select board meeting minutes from December 19th, 2024 as amended.
Second.
Excuse me.
Roll call vote.
You say yes?
Bear, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Prentice abstained.
I move to approve the non-public select board minutes, meeting minutes from session 1 through 4, December 19th, 2024.
Second.
Roll call vote.
You say yes?
Bear, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Prentice abstained.
I move to approve the abatement of $19 for map 214, lot 154, sublot 13.
Second.
Roll call vote.
You say yes?
Bear, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Prentice, yes.
I move to approve the accounts payable 2024. Oh, I see. $67,506.23.
Second.
Roll call vote.
You say yes?
Bear, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Prentice, yes.
And the accounts payable for 2025, the amount of $345,431.23.
Where's the,
Second.
And that's got a school payment in it. It's a couple like one-time payments at the beginning of the year, like I think Primex is one of them that we pay up front twice.
Oh, the sticky note.
Yeah, no sticky note, I'm sorry.
school and Primex.
Okay. That's just one.
School and then the big
insurance.
big insurance payment.
Oh, and Emery, are you online to participate in votes, or?
He's got to find.
Yes, I am.
Mute button.
Oh,
Okay.
excuse me again. For did we do a roll call or no?
No.
Okay. Roll call vote.
You say yes?
Bear, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Prentice, yes.
Robert, yes.
Okay. And I move to approve the payroll, the amount of $57,815.64.
Second.
Roll call vote.
You say yes?
Bear, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Prentice, yes.
Robert, yes.
It passes. And now, make a motion to go into non-public session under RSA 91, A:3, 2A, session 2.
Second.
Roll call vote.
You say yes?
Bear, yes. Schaefer, yes.
7 o'clock on the
Prentice,
dot.
yes.
We are now in
Robert,
non-public.
yes.
We are now in non-public at 7 p.m.
Good night, Bruno.
Thank you, Bruno.
Votes there.
7:23.
I move to come out of non-public session at 7:23 p.m. The minutes are not sealed. Am I making an announcement
Yeah.
about?
Can we go back to COLA and wage increases?
Yes.
After pondering it further, I think life would be simpler payroll-wise. I get the impression everybody is leaning towards making If there's a COLA, to not wait till after town meeting and have this crazy stuff with retro checks for the salary employees. So I would make a motion that we, when we institute a COLA, let's not say in general, but this time, for this COLA, that it takes effect on the first pay period of this year. And salaried employees, hourly employees, they all get the COLA, whatever applies to them, and not waiting till after town meeting.
Unless they haven't gone through probationary period?
Yeah, because it applies to them and it does not apply to those people, right?
Okay.
So if you're a recent hire, you haven't gone through your probationary, or you've just had an increase like the highway department, this doesn't apply to them. But for those it applies to,
Starts.
implemented first pay period in this year.
I'll second that. Beat you.
When's the first pay period?
I think we're ending.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head. We get paid tomorrow, so it would be the next,
Right.
it would be the next paycheck.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
So for all eligible
That's
Right.
a good word, I like that word.
employees.
Roll call vote.
Did you say yes?
Barry, yes. Schaefer, yes.
Regis, yes.
Who was the second?
Steve.
No, it was.
Oh,
I
sorry,
know.
Carl?
I know.
I
wasn't
sure
if the motion was done yet.
Steve,
Oh,
slipping, man.
I don't.
And in case anyone cares, it has no budget implications because it's already, the 3% is already in the budget, just to make that all clear. I think sometimes, some people have this impression we spend a lot of money, new money. We didn't spend any new money just now. That was already been spent.
Thank God.
All right, motion to adjourn.
Second.
And we meet on the 14th.
7:25.
At 7:25.
Is that a Tuesday? Yeah,
Yes. We meet on
Our first Tuesday.
Yeah.
Tuesday. It's gonna screw up my brain.